deaths a little bit.
Yeah, so it was,
I had one other question.
Sure, go for it.
Yeah.
That didn't have to do with the gun. Why would you buy a gun license? If you, let's say he did it, and he killed it with this gun. Wouldn't you not want tied back with that license? Doesn't that kind of flag
to be able to continue to?
Why would you get a gun? This is why I'm asking this question.
He probably needed the gun license to continue to go to the gun range and get familiar with the gun, or be able to have it in his home. He might have needed a gun license, like an official gun license.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
I mean, someone who murders his entire family might not be the best person that listens to laws.
Well, so that was one of the things that they'd actually somewhat addressed, is that, he has never
been interested
before been interested in weapons, but he's also never ever before had any legal trouble whatsoever.
Yeah,
that's what's weird about this case is because we're led to believe that this man killed his entire family and he's a criminal mastermind.
But as they talk about it, so this was one of the things that really kind of irked me about this episode was the very beginning of it. You are so immersed into this man is not just French royalty, but he's a super involved parent. He is uber loving to his family. He gives them the best of the best, but it's not just about the material things that he gives to the people that he loves. He's said to be an incredibly involved parent.
And not only that, but he's got an incredibly involved wife. In fact, his wife taught all of their children in Sunday school.
Yeah, I mean, he's portrayed as this incredibly loving friend and family man who but
the thing is he didn't snap.
Yeah, there was no, and that was one of the things that irked me was it immediately went from this man who, has had this incredible life and has all of these successful businesses and provides so much for his family and then just formulated this plan and carried out this plan.
Very elaborate plan that caused no evidence whatsoever, no blood spots, no blood traces, no
right. And
anything.
That's why we'll have to talk about theories here close to the end, because Dara's got a couple of good theories. I've got some ideas, and I'm sure you have some bad theories.
To kind of finish up how this case goes. So,
the kids are the first murders take place on the evening of April 3rd or the morning of April 4th. They're not sure.
It happened kind of in the middle of the night.
It had to have been at night. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest.
But they found sleeping pills in all 4 of the children's systems, but not in Agnes's. And authorities believe that Agnes was actually the first human victim. And they don't give any clues whatsoever as to when the dogs were killed in this timeline.
Well, I feel like
the dogs would have had to go first.
They had to have gone first. I feel like they had to have given the dogs some kind of drugs to be able to kill both of them without anyone noticing. And my assumption is that they gave the children the person gave the children the sleeping pills to knock them out before he killed his wife, or the accused killed the wife.
Well,
so she might have been the first victim, but
the reason that Agnes didn't have any sleeping pills in her system is because she didn't need them. She had a CPAP machine. She was already in bed. And they noticed that her CPAP machine stopped working at 3 a.m. the night of the murders.
Well, also, if she's the first one he killed, and he already gave sleeping pills to the kids,
others,
it might be as simple as the person took them. And my thoughts is he had to have, put down some kind of tarp or something on the ground to get
some way to prevent.
Literally, it had to be something crazy. Or my other thought is that what if the amount of sleeping pills in the system was a lethal amount? People bleed less if they're shot if they're already dead.
Well, yeah, that's a theory too. But there's a couple of other things that are kind of interesting. So we know that on the night of April 3rd, going into the morning of April 4th, that is when it is believed that Agnes, Arthur, Anne, and Benoit are killed.
Dogs.
And the 2 dogs. But Thomas actually...
Thomas
was the daughter.
That's Anne.
Anne.
You said Anne. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But he actually allowed Thomas to go back to school. Thomas goes back to school
on Sunday the 3rd.
Night. Yes. Yeah, he goes back the night of the murders, actually.
And then, so the whole family had been together on Saturday the 2nd. On Sunday the 3rd, Thomas leaves and goes back to university. That's when they believe that all of the others were killed. And then on Tuesday, Xavier messages or calls Thomas and says, hey, you have to come back home. Your mom's been in a terrible bicycle accident. She's in a coma in the hospital. We don't know if she's going to make it. So Thomas books it back home from university. He messages a friend at midnight, and the friend replies a short time later.
And that message never gets answered.
Yeah, and Thomas never replies.
Police assume that that's when the sleeping pills would have been administered
to Thomas. And then, which we keep calling him Thomas, but his name is actually pronounced Tomas.
We're Americans. We're done.
We're gonna.
Sorry, France.
That is when they believe that Thomas is then killed and buried in a separate grave from everybody else. But it's interesting to note. So we were talking about how earlier about how Thomas would have been the first actual biological son. He would have belonging to Xavier. And, if Xavier's plan was to kill the whole family and there not be any, extra circumstances or extra work, I'm sorry, but if I'm going to kill everybody, I'm going to do it all at once. I'm not sure why I have to stretch this out over 2 days.
Well, at least we know how to kill everybody.
Why didn't he do that on Saturday night when the whole family was all together? And my theory is that it's because he was
had hesitation.
He was considering letting Thomas live and continuing the family lineage, carrying on the family name, and hopefully not bringing the same financial disgrace that Xavier and his father had brought to the family.
Now, we don't really know what made Xavier decide to kill his eldest son.
Or the rest of his family.
Right, yeah. But we do know that he...
Or the dogs.
Or the dogs.
Why kill the dogs?
Well, because you don't want the dogs to get in the way.
That's the obvious one, because the dogs are going to be giving you away as quickly as possible.
I know, but I like dogs better than humans. So.
We all know that Dara's kids are her dogs, and her real kids are
Here at Unsolved Mysteries, we don't condone killing...
small fluffy animals, and I don't care if it is the 160-pound Rottweiler.
We support not killing children as well.
Dog lives matter, though. So the police search takes place on the 21st, and that's when the bodies are found. At this point, Xavier has not been seen since the 4th, according to cops at this time. Yeah. We find out later that that's not exactly true, but...
that he'd been seen out in town, and then, so they're like, oh shit, it's been 3 weeks almost, right. And we haven't even been searching for this guy, right. So...
On the 4th, the murders take place. On the 5th, Thomas is killed. On the 6th, Xavier is seen outside, and he doesn't leave until the 10th. So he's out living his life, doing his own thing.
Living his best life.
Yeah, burying his family under the terrace. Which there's an interesting thing that we need to talk about there, too. Because it's actually stated by several people in the show that they don't believe that Xavier would be physically able to dig the graves that the family is buried in. He had very well documented back issues that would have
Now,
prevented him.
Which, my curious question, and I don't know if you looked it up, is that medically a thing?
From what I could
or is
find,
that just based on hearsay?
From what I could find, it didn't look like it was a
like there wasn't a
thing.
doctor who came out and was like, yeah, he had a bad back. But it was something that was well known by
His
friends
family
and
and his
family
friends.
and other,
I
people
mean-
that he interacted
In
with.
fact, Bruno commented on his back pain and said that they had the same back pain. And it's the lawyer. The lawyer decides to say, hey, we don't think he could have done this. Let me also address the fact that I didn't say this at the beginning, but almost all of this information is coming from Anne Sophie Martin. She is a journalist that we assume covered the case at the time that it happened.
Yeah.
But almost all of this information comes from her.
Okay, so let's say that Xavier did this. And let's say he's been planning this for a long time. I mean, it could be a long con.
Well, I don't know that it was
that's why
necessarily
I'm
a long
asking-
con as much as he knew that he was running out of time
No,
before
no.
he was discovered.
That's not what I meant.
At this point,
what I
the
meant
reason
is
that they say that they think he killed his kids is because at the point that he was at, they think that within a couple of months he would have lost the house, all of the cars, and his children would have been forced to go to private school.
I know what I'm saying is, let's say he's been planning this for even longer than we thought. So if it's just hearsay and, I have a bad back and you have no medical records to prove it, I mean, it could be and you knew you were gonna, if you had this planned out and you knew you were gonna bury them in a place where it would be physically impossible for someone like that to do it. I'm just...
Well, there's this
That's why I'm
idea that
curious about the
physically impossible.
documentation.
So I have a bad back. Like,
But she
everybody
could
sitting at this
probably
table, like,
bend
we all
over.
know I have a bad back from a very bad car accident. But that doesn't mean that when the adrenaline is pumping and,
Fair.
that you can't do incredible things. So
But
I'm not
that's-
saying that it's not physically
We're
possible
just
for him
saying
to
that
have
that's-
done it.
That is
That's
a
what-
long adrenaline to dig a hole for...
Especially hunched over. I mean, we're talking about a space that is only, like, at most.
With my health problems, I don't think I could do that.
Yeah, we're talking about a space. So the
Literally,
terrace
they
was,
said it
yeah.
was probably about 6 inches tall, if that. Like, it wasn't very tall.
It was like, yeah, I think between
And
12
also,
and,
that's a
or
long
6 and
time
12
to be
inches.
to doing that by yourself without anybody noticing.
Which is what brings me to my
Wait,
personal conspiracy
no
theory.
theories.
Oh, okay.
No
I'm
theories.
not
Wait,
going to
wait till the
wait
end.
for the theories. Wait
All
for
right,
the
let's
theories.
get through the rest of the
I'm just trying
timeline.
to...
We're almost there. So on the 22nd, Xavier's car is found. His car is found in...
So literally the day after they find the bodies, they find Xavier's car in this town way far away from where he lives. But
At a
It's in the
Formula
south
One
of
hotel.
France. Yes, at a Formula One hotel. I'm trying to see if I have
Or
the
Formula
name.
E,
I swore
I
I
don't
wrote
know.
it down.
How it's pronounced.
it's the really long one that
Yeah,
starts with an
it's
R.
this one. That one.
That one.
Yeah, the Roquebrune-sur-Argens,
Yeah.
which is in South France. And so they find his car one day after they discover the bodies, after being like, oh shit, we haven't looked for this guy for 3 weeks, and we probably want to do that. And
They checked
immediately
the hotel
find us.
and they didn't find him. So,
Well,
but
it
then
was-
they discover that there's a really, really good trail.
Yeah,
A
like
really good
he left hotel receipts, credit cards, got caught on a speed camera,
trail.
ATM, but every place that he was captured having been, every place that he traveled to on his way to this eventual hotel was someplace that had significance in his life as far as so his first stop was in La Rochelle.
And that's where he started he
Married
Agnes.
Agnes, and then Toulouse, which is where a couple of his kids were born. And then he just traveled on to all of these places that
had
had
emotional
significance to his life.
But I will say this, at this point police suspected he was going to kill himself, which, spoiler alert, doesn't fucking happen. This guy...
Well, it might have.
We don't know.
We don't know what happened.
We
so,
don't-
I don't believe he killed himself.
So they find his car, and they're like, okay, now we know, where his car was. Let's look at some CCTV, and they discover that there's this video of him walking across the hotel parking lot, carrying a bag of clothing, and then it becomes apparent that in one of the bags that he's carrying, he's actually got the rifle, or what they believe to be the rifle. And so he walks past this camera and
looks directly at
the camera, almost kind of like, hey, how you doing? And then disappears into the mountains, of this area, and is never seen or heard from again.
Right. Now, I will say that Bruno and this woman, her name is...
So before we get to what they think, we have to note that for 2 months after they found the car, they actually had
searched
the
wilderness area around
firemen. They had canine units. They had
cadaver dogs,
everything. That all these people out there searching these mountains and cliffs, looking for either where he had traveled to or his body, assuming that 98% of people who commit familicide end up committing suicide. And so the authorities assumed that he had taken this little pilgrimage, reminding him of all of the good times he had had with his family, and then, finally walked into this mountain and hid in a cave or something and offed himself.
Now, here's the thing, though. They never find a body. They did a 2-month-long search with all of these trained animals and all this shit. All these people never found anything. But what we do find out from Anne Sophie Martin, is that there's a U.S. port on the other side of that mountain.
It's not like a U.S. owned port, but it's a port where
lots of U.S. ships come into dock.
So it's a trading port.
About 30 kilometers away, which I don't really know how long that is because I'm America.
What if you like this? 30 kilometers per hour is about 10 miles per hour.
Yeah. But essentially 30 kilometers away, it is a seaport.
Right.
It leads you directly, out into the sea. And one of the things that numerous people end up commenting on is how easy it is to
just buy a ticket on one of those cargo
ships, and essentially be
gone,
whisked away.
Right.
And Anne Sophie Martin and Bruno, Xavier's best friend, both make mention of the fact that
they don't believe he killed himself.
They don't believe he killed himself, and that he is fluent in
3 separate languages.
In French, obviously, but also in Spanish and in English. And both of them mention the likelihood of him catching a ride on a cargo ship and starting a new life in Central America or
South
specifically
America.
Argentina, because he has dark hair, dark eyes, a slightly darker skin complexion, and he already speaks the language. And then it is made mention by the chief of police.
Yeah.
How unremarkable
his features are. He looks like everybody.
Nobody and everybody at the same time. He's just somebody that could blend into a crowd, and that you could look at his face.
Right.
And like I could look at Steven right now and I see features that could be similar.
Right.
To his features.
In fact, Bruno even says it's more likely that he shaved his head or dyed his hair and went to Argentina than it is that he killed himself.
Yeah.
All right, so are we ready for the next segment?
Yes, that will bring us to the end of the case coverage, and now we'll get into the most interesting part, which is the theories.
Theories.
Alrighty, so now we are into my personal favorite part. I'm really excited to hear Dara's theories, but she wants to go last. So I'm going to let Steven go first, because I think that his theory is going to match up with Dara's, so I'll let him go first, I'll go in the middle, and then we'll do Dara's last, because hers is probably the best thought out.
Well, so obviously the most likely theory is that he did it himself. He killed his entire family. But for me, that seems a little too easy. Obviously, there's the whole back thing, which we don't know for sure whether that was real or not. There's also the fact that he made it so easy to track up until he disappears, which I find very weird. So, the best theory I can come up with that isn't he just did it and disappeared, possibly committed suicide, is somebody had something over him. Which I don't know what somebody could have over him that isn't simply, well, there's money, sure.
I mean, you never know. This guy could have been, like, weird. It's not like his kids are here to tell us anything bad that he might have done. I mean, he could have been awful.
It could have been. And he could have been, but, like, I believe that even if he did it, there's at least a second party involved.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
He had assistance in some way. Or
I think he hired Dexter, and Dexter did the whole thing.
Dexter from the TV show, the Showtime TV show
Jesus.
Dexter. Yeah.
Staunch Catholic.
Jesus did it.
I just think it was his dark passenger just waking up. That's a Dexter reference for those who don't watch Dexter. But it almost seems like this seems almost too professional, almost like a French mafia or something was involved, or
a very misunderstood U.S. government agency.
Oh, Jesus
Christ. Who is very good at cleaning up crime scenes.
Yeah, the crime scene, like, to believe that Xavier did this on his own is, to my knowledge, he doesn't have any previous, like, education.
I mean, he probably has, obviously, a college level education, being French nobility. That's pretty commonplace. But as far as a forensics education or I've never heard of another crime scene where there's literally absolutely no evidence at all. I mean, I've heard of cases where the evidence is very minuscule or has been degraded by cleaning agents, but they literally found nothing.
Unless they weren't killed there.
Yeah, but then, I mean, that's not even where...
I mean, because here's my thing. And this is just, we'll go into my theory a little bit.
So I don't get to finish mine.
You're going to finish.
Oh, yeah. Go to finish.
No, continue, Kezaya.
Here's my thing. There was no gunshot holes in the beds. So they weren't killed in the beds. Point.
It is a good point.
And they weren't killed in the floors.
But they found all of the bullets lodged in the bodies. So there wouldn't have been...
How did he make that happen? Because if you shoot somebody point blank, gun to their head like this, that bullet's going through.
Not a 22. 22s are very small in the gun world.
Well, okay. I don't know a lot about guns, so I'll take your word. Go ahead, Steven. You can finish.
Okay, so... Yeah, we have to for him to have done it by himself. We have to believe he's a mastermind and knows to make sure. Which, I mean, it's possible. I guess I would be able to think of, I don't want blood splatter, so put something down. Put down a towel. But
something that is an interesting thing to bring up is, the bullet holes. There not being any bullet holes in the mattresses is fairly easy to explain away with the fact that all of the bullets remain lodged in the skulls. What isn't explained by that is how do you keep blood from seeping into the mattresses? unless you've already laid the bodies on a tarp.
That's what I'm saying is...
But how do you get your kids to
put
go
a
to
tarp-
sleep on a tarp? I mean, you're going to have to lift each individual body
If
onto
he
the
didn't
tarp
do it-
after they go to
So-
sleep.
If he didn't do it, who's to say that that didn't happen?
So my thought was that whoever did it, put a tarp down, put something down to clean it up, maybe put a pillow in there when he did the shot that might have made the blood
Soak into the pillow.
And he got rid of the pillows. But I believe he did each one individually because, like he said, now the dogs are a little more of a confusion factor for me. I feel like that they would be harder, and maybe he put them to sleep too.
I wonder if he laid the bodies on the garbage bags that they were then buried in.
I said tarp, but yeah, that's essentially what I'm saying is he did them.
But then you're still expecting one 50-year-old man with a supposedly bad back to be able to lift these grown individuals. Because
Not to
Arthur
mention
is
carry them downstairs to bury them.
But you're going to have to, they have to, so
Arthur's 20 years old. That's a full-grown adult.
That's a full-grown adult who's in very good physical condition. And you're lifting his full body weight. You're not going to do that one-handed.
Yeah,
how did you lift the body and lay something underneath them with only having two hands?
Well, I would assume he laid the tarp down. He drugged them, then laid the tarp down while his wife was sleeping, and did everything.
But the kids were...
Which I believe that somebody else did these things. But yes, I believe that the kids were not killed in their bed. I believe they were killed on a tarp or something to stop the blood. I believe that... I don't know if he did the shooting himself. And I do also believe that he knew this was coming. I believe he knew this was coming. And he was under some kind of coercion or something like that. And he thought he saved his oldest son. I believe that he sent his oldest son. He allowed him to go thinking, well, at least maybe I can save my oldest son and my lineage. So, and then whoever did this forced him. The DEA.
The U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency.
Forced him I believe they forced him to get his son back.
Yeah.
So they could have him killed too.
I don't know. I have a couple of different theories, and mine also range from the more likely to the less likely. But I have a lot of questions on how